Razorback football camp begins next week. But there's a lot to talk about today that's not football related. It's been a busy week for Razorback basketball, been a busy week for Razorback baseball. Basketball team starting their exhibition tour of the Bahamas tonight. We'll talk about that with Ethan Westerman, who's here in studio with me. I want to tell you that we're brought to you by Eggland's Best. In Arkansas, greatness starts early, before the pads go on, before the crowd roars. The day begins at the breakfast table. Eggland's Best delivers superior nutrition with more vitamin D and less saturated fat than ordinary eggs. You can start strong with Eggland's Best. Better taste, better nutrition, and better eggs. For more information, egglandsbest.com. We're also brought to you by Bentonville Glass. They've been serving their community since 1971. They're committed, professional, and versatile. If you're looking for a quality leader in Northwest Arkansas or looking for skilled craftsmanship, look no further than Bentonville Glass for all your glass market needs with the highest quality products. You can buy and see them now at 507 South Main in Bentonville or online at bentonvilleglass.com. If you're watching us on YouTube or Twitter or Facebook, welcome. We post all of our videos on those platforms. Just search for Whole Hog Sports. We also put an audio version of our podcast on our Apple Podcast and Spotify page. We're still weekly. We're going to be weekly for probably about another 3 or 4 weeks. Then we'll go back to a daily podcast format once football season, right before football season begins. Ethan Westerman here. Razorbacks play in the Bahamas tonight. They're going to play, is it the Bahamas national team, I think, is first up. All of these games are going to be televised or streamed on Flow Sports. Matt Zimmerman's down there. He's going to be on the TV broadcast. Chris Sylvester is going to be handling the play-by-play. I believe he's a play-by-play voice for Cal Poly. I don't know, like if you're at Cal Poly and you get the call, hey, we want you to go to the Bahamas and do 4 Arkansas games, yeah, I'd probably take that call.
Yeah, I think you say yes probably every single time.
So they're going to have these games. I believe this is a 6 o'clock p.m. Central tip-off tonight. All these games are being played at the Bahamas resort there in the Bahamas. John Calipari spoke on Monday this week. He invited some reporters over to watch a small, like 20 minutes or so of practice. Were you able to glean anything out of what you saw there?
Yeah, I think it would maybe be a disservice to just take two big of observations from we actually were supposed to only get 20 minutes of watching them practice, probably got closer to 30. But it wasn't like we were watching a whole lot of just scrimmaging. They did a little bit of like 2-on-1 type of stuff, some defensive drills, where you could like see a few things, but I just don't think we saw enough of the up and down the court action to where it's like you can really just make two just grand observations. But I do think that one thing that, like, you're going to hear this mentioned a lot this year. Like, you're going to be so sick and tired of hearing about Arkansas being tall and long and athletic. But, I mean, it's just how they are. Whenever you have that many guys who are 6'11" and above, I think it's 6 of them, and you have some 7-foot guys. You just have a lot of length on this team that we see that they kind of maybe tried to combat what killed them last year toward the end whenever they played those bigger teams, how they just honestly couldn't hang, that you knew that their tournament path, if they were going to get beat, it was probably going to be against a team that had some really elite big men. I think that they tried to compensate for it this year and added a whole lot of height to the roster, a lot of length. They're going to be, I think, a lot better defensively. I don't think that's too crazy to say right now here on July 31st, just from watching even a little bit of practice. They just have, I think, a roster that's more equipped to be good defensively. But yeah, no, I mean, the moment that John Calipari doesn't tell you that he likes his team, you should be worried. He told us he likes his team. I think that you look at the talent level, you look at the physical attributes, you look at it all put together, and I think it's easy to see why he likes his team. And I think that fans, this is a type of team that you could see going deep in March Madness if it all comes together the right way.
I'm looking at the roster here. I mean, and who knows who of these players, actually plays and logs significant minutes. I figure they'll all play against the Bahamas, but as we all know, the roster will shrink as it always does when the regular season rolls around. But you got, I count 5 players who are 6'11" and above. You got Caleb Arrigo, who reclassified and came in early. You've got Mika Marinin, who he's not going to play at least tonight. I don't know that he's going to play at all in the Bahamas. There's some eligibility stuff there with him that has to get worked out. Maper Maker, He's 7 foot tall. Cooper Bowser, the transfer from Furman, he's 6'11". Paulo Tomato, 7'1". I mean, there's some.
And then there's the Russian guy, Ilya.
Oh, am I missing one?
He's
Yeah.
7 foot.
Ilya Frolov.
Yeah.
Thank God for this pronunciation guide, by the way, because I mean there are some unique names on this roster.
And what stands out to me is even the guys who aren't 6'11" and above are like just physical guys. Like J.J. Andrews is built. That guy is not going to get pushed around against people at his position. I mean, Jordan Smith. I think he's going to be really good. This is already, everybody knows this, that they think he's going to be really good defensively, but just watching him in person and seeing how he kind of commands the defense a little bit when he's out there, I just think he's the type that is going to be, getting a lot of steals, getting out in transition. And then, like even some of the smaller guys, like Jeremiah Wilkinson is 6'1", 185, but he's a built guy. Like these are just physical basketball players. These look like guys who could go play football, a lot of them.
Then they need that because they have been pushed around too much, especially last year, but even to a certain extent the year before. That's kind of been during Calipari Arkansas years, a lack of a real physical inside presence, and we'll see if they've got that this year. But they certainly, it seems like they are more equipped to have that this year than they have been, and way more equipped this year than they've been the last couple of years.
I'm gonna need your pronunciation guide for this one too. For Caleb, the freshman, the reclassified player.
Arrigo. I believe it's Arrigo. Yeah, he's not on the Arkansas pronunciation guide, but that's from another pronunciation.
Well, he's 6'11" and every bit of 240. He looks like,
and he's what, 17?
Yes, this guy looks like he could be a senior. I was getting him in, this is the first time watching them, didn't have numbers down and stuff. And I, for a second, got him and Cooper Bowser mixed up because Cooper Bowser, I think, he's 6'11", 225. So they're the same height, just 15 pounds apart. But, I was thinking Caleb was Bowser for a second. I was like, oh, that has to be, the senior. I mean, this kid is built. I think everybody has worries about high schoolers who enroll early and play early, reclassify. I look at him and I'm like, okay, no, I don't have any physical concerns with you. Maybe it's between the ears right now that you have to learn a lot more, but at least physically, I mean, this guy is every bit college basketball player.
And you never want to assume that somebody's going to be on campus for more than 1 year anymore. But you look at somebody like that and you think, what if you could get him to his sophomore year and to 18 years old and a year in, an off season of strength and conditioning? Like what could he project to look like in 2 years? That's got to be exciting for them, because not everybody's going to be one and done. We don't know if he's going to be or not. I have no idea. I don't see him on a bunch of ESPN's mock drafts or anything for next summer. But I think that when you can, there's always an excitement, and it doesn't matter what the sport is. When you see somebody and you're like, that guy is going to be able to look a whole lot different in 2 or 3 years than he does right now, and he feels like one that you can certainly say that about.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just, I mean, their whole roster, it's hard to not get excited about the depth of a lot of these guys are kind of in that boat. Is it Mapir Maker? Mapir Maker. He is every bit of 7 foot. I thought he was even taller looking, but his wingspan is crazy. His wingspan has to be longer than his height. This guy there's just a lot of things I think you can get excited about, especially defensively. And this guy is, I mean, I would hate to try and go up against him. I'd get my stuff swatted to outer space, or maybe back to Australia. I think that's where he's from.
Yep.
This team just has a lot of those physical traits that you need, I think, in college basketball. And I do think there is going to be some risk probably with teams that get reclassified guys if you're relying on them to be a big part of your team that season. But John Calipari said that he thinks it's going to be something that we continue to see just a lot more of as years go. I'm sure the 5-year eligibility has something to do with it. Maybe how teams are planning to, use maybe now a reclassified year as a development year for somebody to be more ready for their true freshman. I don't even know what we'll call it anymore.
There's risk associated with every type of recruiting strategy. Like I'm sure that when Michigan put together their championship team last year of nothing but starting portal players, there's a risk to that. There's a risk of those guys not coming together and playing well as a team. You think about some of these teams like Arizona, for instance, who go out and they're like overwhelmingly majority international players. There's a risk to putting together that type of team. I don't know if this is going to work out for Arkansas in terms of getting to a Final Four or winning a championship or anything like that. But I feel like sometimes you kind of have to take a risk because like doing it the same way over and over again is usually going to get you comparable results. They've been to the Sweet 16 2 years in a row. They've had good seasons. But certainly, when you're paying your head coach $8 million or whatever that number is, and you're paying your staff a really hefty salary of tenured assistant coaches, like the expectations are to go more than the Sweet 16. I think that's what you've seen from Arkansas this year. Is number one, they've learned, I think, a little bit about what has been their kryptonite, especially last season, inside play, and then it's like, hey, we did this a certain way for a couple of years. Let's change this up. Let's get some international flair in here. Let's get some of these guys who are going to reclassify and just see what they can do. And, you throw the ball out there and we'll see.
Yeah, and I think that they've got, just from the way I look at this, is going to be, I'd be shocked if this isn't their best defensive team they've had under Calipari yet. Which the first year, they were pretty good defensively, and the offense was really slow to come along. I think this team is going to be better equipped to maybe start off the season stronger offensively while having good defense. And just, I'll be curious to see what this team can be by March. I think you always are with any college basketball team. You're curious to see the progression of how it goes. I think this one, just with the youth especially, I'm just like, I could see it being the type of season where they have to learn a lot in non-conference play with this youth. But they have the talent, they have the skill, they have the physical attributes to, I think, really progress well throughout a season and be playing their best ball maybe toward the end of the year. I think, I forgot exactly how Coach Cal brought it up, how he worded it, but somebody asked about J.J. Andrews, and he was getting into how physical J.J. is, that he's not going to get pushed around, but he's like, what's it like when you have like 3 or 4 Billy Richmonds out there? And I think that that's what this team, like, they just have more of those players that are going to just be that kind of spark plug, that just physical, defensive, but also skilled on the offensive end. I think that, between Abdou Toure, I think that's how you say his last name, and then J.J. Andrews and Billy, Jordan Smith for sure. I just think they have a bunch of, I know Cal's been calling them dogs this summer, but it's a pretty good term, I think.
Term of endearment.
Yeah,
it's like being called a dirtbag in baseball.
Yeah, but they've got a lot of them.
The schedule, they're going to play the Bahamas national team. That's 6 o'clock tonight. Again, all these are going to be on Flow Sports. Tomorrow they'll play Carleton University. That's out of Canada. It's going to be a 5 o'clock tip-off on Saturday night. They won't play Sunday. Monday, they're back in action. They'll play Toros del Valle, maybe, Colombia. 5 o'clock tip-off Monday night. And then on Tuesday, they'll finish up this exhibition tour. They'll play University of Calgary. That's out of Canada at 11 a.m. Central Time. Again, all of those are going to be on Flow Sports. Anthony Christensen is down there covering these for us on our website, wholehogsports.com. Some scheduling news this week for Razorback basketball. John Calipari said they're going to play Memphis in an exhibition. He also said they're going to play Kansas in an exhibition. Or I think he said, I think we're going to play Kansas in an exhibition. I believe that's how he said it. Doesn't look like that's going to happen. KU this week, they announced that they're going to play an exhibition game against Duke at Allen Fieldhouse. I believe they've already got one scheduled against Louisville, and I think they're going to play one of the smaller school states.
I saw Pitt State.
I think, the Gorillas from just up the road.
Yeah. Gorillas.
Yeah, home of Sam Pittman. I believe Pitt State's going to play at Allen Fieldhouse too. So those, I don't think you can play more than 3 exhibitions. And there were some KU reporters who you indicated this week that some people there in Lawrence were pushing back against this notion that KU and Arkansas were going to play an exhibition. We'll see where they play Memphis at. I don't know if that was said.
I would think Fayetteville. It would just make sense to me.
You would think so, but you also wonder, like, Calipari, he really likes taking this team out. Like, he's a showman, And when you're a showman, what do you want to do? You want to go take your team and or whatever. You want to go take your show on the road in these grand environments and arenas. It's one of the reasons that you take them to the Bahamas. Now, I think they're playing like a hotel lobby, or not like a lobby, but like a hotel conference room or something. We've all seen these games on TV where you're wondering, like, man, what are they playing in?
Yeah.
Like the week of Thanksgiving. I think that's kind of the setting that they're going to be playing in there at the Bahamas. But you look at he's taking them to play Michigan State and Detroit on Thanksgiving. They're taking them to play Phoenix, or play Arizona in Phoenix. They're taking the team to play Indiana at Madison Square Garden. There's a report out here this week, and I don't know if how verifiable this is, but that they're possibly going to play Virginia in Washington, D.C. And, of course, there's a lot of people like saying these are neutral site games. You're going to play Virginia in D.C. You're going to play Michigan in their backyard in Detroit. You're going to play Arizona in their backyard in Phoenix. These feel like road games that just aren't on campus. Now, I'm sure there will be, I think that there's written in the Arizona contract that they will have a return neutral site game down the road. Where that is, who knows? Is that Dallas? Is it Tulsa? Is it North Little Rock? We'll see. But, he wants to take this team out on the road. And there's a lot of people, who I think are a little frustrated right now that they're not going to have a big marquee non-conference game, it looks like, at Bud Walton Arena this year. But I say all that, like Memphis, like they played Memphis at FedEx Forum last year in an exhibition game. And so the conventional wisdom says that they would come back to Fayetteville. I just don't know that you can use conventional wisdom all the time when you think about Calipari because of how outside the box he gets with this schedule.
Yeah, and it's who knows. And also, to his credit, the other day, he was very hesitant when he was asked about exhibitions. He was like, is that on with Kansas? He did not know himself. It was pretty clear. But he spoke with enough authority on it that you were like, well, he said this. It's out there.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't like super verifiable, how he said it. It was just kind of like, he ended up saying something along the lines of, I just get on the bus when they tell me to. I just sit on my seat and we go there. And yeah, I'd be curious to see if they would go on the road for an exhibition, knowing how much they're already going to be on the road.
And they're not going to have, and they're not going to have a lot of, well, I think we're saying the same thing. They're not going to have a whole lot of on-campus games. And so I think, like nobody ever used to think about exhibition games being kind of a big part of the season ticket package. And I don't know if it is part of the season ticket package. I don't have basketball tickets, so I don't know this. But I would think that it might be. Mm-hmm. But either way, when Purdue came here for that exhibition a couple of years ago, like that place was packed on a Saturday afternoon during football season. And so I would suspect that whenever Gonzaga comes in, the place is going to be pretty full too for an exhibition. It was like that when KU came in a couple of years ago. Like, it kind of offsets a little bit of maybe you don't have that big marquee opponent, but the administration still wants to, like get some income here off of, a big basketball game before SEC play rolls around.
And I know that John Calipari likes to use these exhibitions. A lot of programs like to use them for charity. I mean, for instance, the one against Cincinnati last year was towards some sort of Care Source,
which they're I got an email from them the other day. They're affiliated somehow with the game in Detroit this year.
Oh, gotcha. And then the one in Memphis obviously was St. Jude's.
St. Jude. Yep.
But I just would be curious to see if they get 2 home exhibitions this year, how they kind of treat those. If they are both charity, if there's one that they try and make a buck off of, because they're not going to be able to do that really until SEC a big crowd.
It's one of those deals where it's like it feels like there's a lot of mouths to feed from basketball scheduling. Like North Little Rock, they won a game. Are they going to get a game this year? I don't have any reason to think they're not going to. But, you just start thinking it's like there's only a limited number of dates that are there when, you're going to North Carolina for the ACC Challenge. And then, we mentioned these neutral site games that they have. And maybe or maybe not that Virginia, D.C. thing is going to happen. They've only got 4 non-conference games scheduled right now in Fayetteville. They got 5 dates left that they can fill. We got a couple of those yesterday. Robert Morris on November 10th, Oral Roberts on December 5th. Those go with a couple of games that have previously been reported on Central Michigan and Texas Rio Grande Valley late in the non-conference play late in December. But it's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out.
Yeah, because the more that you fill up those games where you're going to,
what about Dallas?
DC.
I mean, like they've enjoyed going to Dallas the last couple of years.
And the more you do that, I mean, it's unless that Little Rock game, all of a sudden you get into like the football type of talk where you're like, how many for your home ticket package are you missing out on? And maybe this is a terrible idea. Maybe this is a horrible idea. And I know people in Little Rock. I mean, I grew up going to some of those games. I love going. A nice little non-conference game on a Saturday in November or whatever, December usually. But maybe play Memphis in an exhibition in North Little Rock.
Like I don't know if that's going to happen.
I don't know
that's speculation on our part, but
I honestly think if you bring in a team that's like Memphis is more exciting than some of these teams that have gone to North Little Rock and played the Razorbacks in the regular season. If you actually played an exhibition game in Little Rock against a team of a high caliber team, I think it could be more exciting than the thing that goes on in December. I know it's a tradition, and I like protecting traditions if you can, if it makes sense. But
one of the things that's made that game down there at was it Simmons Bank Arena now? I still want to call it Alltel Arena. That's what it opened as many years ago. But one of the things that's made it good is that they put it on a Saturday when school's either out or finals are going on. I can't remember exactly which, but basically it's where you're probably not going to get the same crowd in Fayetteville that you would get in North Little Rock. And so they're going to fill up a 16,000 seat arena there, whereas you played in Fayetteville, you might get 10 to 12,000 in a 20,000 seat arena. It's just got a different feel and a different vibe, and there's a lot of people who will go to that game there in Central Arkansas that wouldn't come to a game here otherwise.
It's a home court down there. Like it's what War Memorial I feel like used to be with football whenever they played LSU, where it was. And some of these other SEC opponents where it was really loud, really hostile. I mean,
and they would put the LSU games kind of in a similar capacity. You'd play it the day after Thanksgiving, and all the students are home, and you're not going to, you're not going to fill up the stadium in Fayetteville. You could fill up a stadium that's got 20,000 fewer seats.
Yeah, well, and that arena gets really loud down there. I know. I think it was Eric Musselman's first year.
Mm-hmm.
Was it Lipscomb? They played somebody down there, and it was really, really close. Valparaiso, maybe?
Valpo was a game where I think they went to overtime. And
it was Valpo. They almost lost to Lipscomb under Musselman there. It was a Valpo. But that arena for the Valpo game was ridiculous.
Yeah, you get a good game in there. You get a good game in there, and people will react.
But all that to say, I do think there's actually you can get creative with exhibitions and maybe incorporate that arena into the mix if it's possible and bring a really good opponent in there. I think that would excite a lot of people in Central Arkansas.
Not a whole lot of football news this week. Billy Ray Smith Jr. Did pass away on Wednesday. He's 64 years old. His family said that he had dementia. They said that it was caused by CTE. Now, as I understand it, you cannot diagnose CTE until posthumously, and so they're going to donate his brain to Boston University. And they'll go through the formal process of diagnosing whether or not he had that. But it's my understanding from talking to some people who knew him that he'd been in some tough shape for the last couple of years. I did not see Billy Ray Smith Jr. play, but I did grow up in a household or in a family, Ethan, where you hear these stories from your dad and your granddad, and your dad said, well, Billy Ray Smith Jr. was just a great player, and then his dad chimes in. Well, you should have seen Billy Ray Smith Sr. Like the Billy Ray Smith legacy, the father-son legacy at Arkansas. Really, I don't know that there's a whole lot of these in college football. Like there's a lot of really good. There have been a lot of really good dads and sons who have played college football, but where you've got two men who are undoubtedly like two of the greatest that have ever played their position at one school. That's what makes this really unique. And Billy Ray Smith, there's only 4 players in Arkansas football history who have been a consensus All-American twice. This is the list, Ethan. Lloyd Phillips, who won an Outland Trophy, Billy Ray Smith Jr., Sean Andrews, who anybody who saw him play, how good he was, and then Darren McFadden, obviously. Won a couple of Doak Walker awards and was the Heisman finalist a couple times. That's the list. And I was talking with somebody yesterday. I said, if somebody wanted to make the argument that Billy Ray Smith Jr. is the greatest football player in Razorback history, I would listen to that argument. because, again, there just are not a lot of people who have those credentials. And he played during an era, you and I were talking about this yesterday, he played during an era where, McFadden played and everything at that time goes on YouTube. There's highlights on YouTube day of or next day of everything that he had done. Billy Ray Smith Jr. didn't play in that era. And he also didn't play a position like running back where, you're touching the ball 75, 80% of the snaps, or in McFadden's case, maybe even more than that because of the way they used him at Arkansas. You go back and you watch the Billy Ray Smith video highlights, just a phenomenal, player off the edge at Arkansas. And I was talking with one of his teammates yesterday. They said, I really wish they would have kept sack totals in his day, because he may have a sack record that could never be touched at Arkansas. He does have 2 records at Arkansas that have never come close to being touched. 63 tackles for a loss. That is, I believe, 16 more than
ridiculous.
The next closest, which was Trey Flowers, who was pretty good. And then he had 353 or maybe 363 yards of lost yardage on those tackles. And as Bob Holt, can only the way Bob Holt can do. I went back and read a story that he wrote whenever Billy Ray Smith went into the College Football Hall of Fame. He said Billy Ray Smith threw players for 3.5 football fields for a loss. Yeah. Kind of puts it into perspective.
Yeah, and I mean, the tackles for losses, that blows my mind, that number.
And how many of those are sacks?
I would like to see where that stacks. I would have to figure, I would assume that if you look at FBS,
it'd have to be up there.
Yeah, I think it'd have to be up there. I mean, because that's just such a crazy total. I mean, geez. And also, you think about, I've been down there to Atlanta for media days, SEC media days at the College Football Hall of Fame, and it's there's not a whole lot of Arkansas in there, to be honest, inductees.
I think 16 people, and a lot of those are Jimmy Johnson and Danny Ford, who they're really in there because of something they did elsewhere.
But he's one of them that he's in there for what he did with the Razorbacks. And it's like him, Darren McFadden. There's a few more, but he's definitely everything you read and you see, you understand why he's a legend. And I think he was in the draft that he was taken in the first defensive player off the board, right?
Probably so. And that was the draft, I believe, that had John Elway. I think it might have had Marcus Allen in that draft.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a really good draft year.
5th overall, right?
Yeah, 5th overall to the Chargers.
Yeah.
The great story about him, he went to high school in Plano, Texas, right outside of Dallas. And it was between Arkansas and Texas to get him to come play college football. And his dad told him that he could either drive a new car to Fayetteville or he could walk to Austin. And so the decision was made there. Yeah. But Billy Ray Smith Jr. passed away this week. And it's been really interesting to read just kind of the outpouring of tributes to him, not only here in Arkansas, but also in Southern California, San Diego in particular, where he just did a lot of things in the community. Had a really long broadcasting career. Was a television anchor there. Did some radio work. Just real big loss in the college football world this week.
It's I pulled up just for fun the Arkansas. They just dropped the 2026 media guide for football, and I just wanted to do put in his name real quick, just because it's always. You put in a former player's name. Sometimes you're trying to find something, you find a result or two. Mm-hmm. He's all over this thing. Well, I mean, it's just like he's.
Well, between he and his dad, I think if you just type in Billy Ray Smith, you'll find 40 results.
Yeah.
In the Arkansas football media guide.
It just goes to show, because this is not all former players are in a media guide this many times. You got to be really good to have this many your name listed this many times in there. But yeah, he's. It's one of those deals where I now, as someone who was born in the year 2000, I want to pull up his film and just watch this guy, because something about a really good defensive player in the 80s, their film is just, it's so fun.
Well, Southwest Conference football was pretty good then,
and
too.
Also, that's just back when there weren't as many penalties for hits. And it's you see some hits, and you're like, oh yeah, that would have been the targeting call immediately in today's football. that back then was just go get them.
War Machine's got some highlights of him. You ought to
Yeah.
go. You ought to go watch that. Some news in Arkansas baseball this week. The week began with the signing deadline for the MLB draft. That feels like an eternity ago, to be honest with you. 'Cause
Yeah.
there's been so much that's happened since then. Everybody who was drafted, whether they be a Razorback player or one of these or one of these committed players who had committed to Arkansas to the transfer portal, everybody signed. So all 15 players signed. Arkansas is not going to get any of these drafted players to campus. The 12 drafted Razorbacks, they signed for a cumulative total of about just under $14.8 million. There was only one team in college baseball that had more signing bonuses than Arkansas, and that was Georgia Tech. And a lot of that was due to the fact that they had two players who were taken very early in the draft, and I think between them they made like $17 million. So it's good money if you can get it. But Arkansas did really well in the draft this year. And I feel like they did really well in the draft in a couple of ways. Like, it's one of those deals where they had 12 players taken, but you didn't really expect any of those 12 players to be back. I know that with with Carson Wiggins, there was some hope that he might return, but I also think that there were a lot of people who thought whenever he hurt his elbow against Florida in 2025, knowing that he was going to be a draft eligible sophomore, knowing the timeline for that type of recovery, there were a lot of people who thought you have seen him pitch his final pitch as a Razorback, and that was the case. So it's one of those deals where, from a PR perspective, it's a good year because you get 12 players drafted. Only Georgia had more. You get, almost $15 million in signing bonuses. Only Georgia Tech had more. But I don't know that it really affected the next year's roster a whole lot, what happened to you in the draft. It felt like that a good chunk of what I would call the retainable players that they had, they were able to retain. You're going to get Nolan Souza coming back. You're going to get TJ Pompey coming back. A number of the draft eligible portal players are going to come in, and they didn't have any other high school signees taken this year. And so I think like from a draft perspective, Nate Thompson mentioned this a couple of weeks ago when I talked to him. It's like a net positive for Arkansas. So that was the beginning of the week, MLB draft deadline. Dave Van Horn spoke earlier this week. We got to talk to him for the first time, and I could talk about it on the podcast for the first time about Shogo Miyuchi. I actually wrote this story from a resort out in published it from I wrote it in Fayetteville. I published it from a resort out in South Carolina last week. I had known this was coming, and I had talked to him, and it was just kind of hey, we need to wait until some things are finalized here before it's finalized, I guess, for lack of a better term. Very interesting pitcher. 6'5", 207 pounds, first Japanese-born player to ever sign with an SEC program out of high school. Now, Kenny Ichikawa just played at Georgia this year, but he began his career at Seattle, and he wasn't born in Japan. He was actually born in Honolulu, and then played high school baseball in Japan. But Dave Van Horn said, basically said, kind of real intriguing player, Shogo Miyuchi. There's going to be a language barrier there that they've got to, as he said, they've got to learn how to communicate with him. But this has been pretty fascinating, the signing of Shogo, and boy, people are really interested in it. Baseball coverage or baseball interest in baseball coverage is really high here. It's been really, really high in the Shogo story.
Yeah, I know you were watching like Japanese baseball broadcast with the translated captions on and stuff, so you can get some
info. In Tokyo,
info.
there's a 14-hour time zone difference between here and Tokyo, and so when I was communicating with Shogo and with a contact that he has there in Tokyo, it was a lot of late night calls, either late night for me or late night for them, because there's not a lot of times during the day where you're working and they're working at the same time.
Yeah, I feel like you were on the phone with Japan or something in Japan all the time, and you were also it was just funny to see you, you'd send posts that are all in Japanese, and I'd have to click the C translation button every single time just to try and figure out what it was about.
I found a story about Shogo that his agency posted yesterday. And it's a 3-page, like this is old school, where you get to the bottom of an internet page and you got to click on page 2, click on page 3. Anyway, it's 3 pages of that. The whole thing is in Japanese, and I'm going to figure out a way to read this story. I just haven't figured out a way to do it yet, but that came out yesterday.
How exciting, though, I think it's just like, it's going to be fun. Like, we know how good
so much, if nothing else, there's so much intrigue about this guy.
I mean, baseball and softball, too, even in Japan, is a big deal.
Huge.
It's
somebody put it this way to me: high school baseball in Japan is like high school football in Texas.
Yeah.
Let that sink in for a second. Like this guy, he was in middle school. 9th grade is middle school in his city. As a 9th grader in middle school, he struck out Rentaro Sasaki, who is the all-time home run leader in Japan high school baseball. He just signed with the Marlins this week or last week. He played at Stanford for a couple of years. Like, he struck him out swinging as a middle schooler. And it got everybody's attention, and he's been on the radar ever since then.
I'm excited to see what the hog pen does with this, because they've had some fun in recent years. Between I've seen some kangaroos for Australia, I've seen a lot of Hawaiian stuff. I just think that they're going to have a lot of fun with this, and it'll be fun. It's crazy that we sit here and baseball is just such a year-round thing. As far as I know, that a lot of players have been playing, summer ball, and then it's July 31st. We're going to turn around, and it's going to be fall ball in like a couple months.
If that, September 9th will be the first day of fall ball.
And it's just crazy how it has developed into such a year-round. Like, you have to monitor everything, especially just with the nature of the draft, and with like that you have transfer interests who are getting drafted, and your rosters Johnny Gomez, you're having to add guys like him because of what happens with the draft. It's such moving pieces, and it's crazy to see how these coaches like a Dave Van Horn have adapted with the way that the sport has changed, because it is totally different now, I would assume, to navigate July than it was 15 years ago.
No doubt.
5 years ago.
Van Horn said of Sogo, he said, quote, "He's big, he's young, and he'll get better here." He said, "We just have to learn how to communicate a little bit, and that'll be something we'll really work on. We got a few things up our sleeve there."
I liked that comment when I heard him say that. I'm like, what are the things up your sleeve?
Yeah. Fall exhibitions. He said Arkansas is going to play 4 fall exhibitions this year. They've only been able to play 2 in the past. NCAA changed that to where you can play 4 now. He didn't say who they were. Again, this is one of those things where I don't think things are totally finalized. He said they've got 3 teams that are kind of committed to play them. All of the games are going to be at Baum. He said maybe a couple of in-state teams, maybe a Texas school. They played Little Rock in fall exhibitions quite a bit. I would think that would be a pretty high potential that they would play Little Rock again, especially given the ties between those coaching staffs. But we'll find that out here pretty soon.
I have a question about all this draft stuff that I'm glad I get to ask you. It seems to me, as someone who's not always in the weeds with this in the summer with the draft and everything, that they get absolutely killed with high school prospects. At least in the past, that's how I viewed it. I'm like, oh, there's another really highly ranked high school player who...
It happens a lot.
How did this... it seems like that didn't really happen this year.
I think they had a lot of players... they could have had a lot of players signed or drafted and potentially signed. They had a lot of players who stuck to their number. That's really what it boils down to. They had a lot of players who said, to get me to sign professional baseball, it's going to take X amount of dollars. And when the team started calling during the draft, they didn't want to, I'm just using hypothetical numbers here. They didn't offer $1 million. They offered $500,000, and players didn't bite. And, I've said this before, I think with high school baseball or just baseball in general, what we're seeing with the MLB draft is less of an emphasis on signing high school players. There were only like 124, I think, high school players signed this year. Or drafted this year out of 620 or so picks. And so it was a really low year for high school, but it keeps getting lower every year, it feels like. A year or two, when Vahiva got drafted, there was a run on high school shortstops that year in the first round. Well, that wasn't the case this year. And it just seems like what we've seen more often than not in the draft is that teams are really valuing college players who have been developed for 1 or more years in a big-time program. Maybe it's a guy like Daniel Jackson, who he starts out somewhere and then he transfers into Georgia and he gets developed there, or Vahiva Aloy is a great example of this. And I think too, players can make money now in college baseball. Like if you're and especially if you're at a place like Arkansas or LSU or A&M or Mississippi State, where baseball's a really big deal, you can go there and you've got some star power inside that town, inside that state. And so you can go there and make some money, and it's not like kind of an all or nothing type deal anymore. You can get full scholarships now in baseball. Not everybody's got full scholarships, but a lot of players do have full scholarships. And so everything's just changed a lot to where I feel like it is more, unless you're just a really top end player, it's almost more beneficial for you, I think, to go to college now than it is to take the pro money right out of high school.
It just jumped off the page to me when I was seeing these Arkansas, like who was getting picked by Arkansas. I was like, I'm so used to seeing so many.
I don't think it's a deal, Ethan, where they had a bad signing class.
Yeah.
Because, Baseball America, they re-ranked the signing classes after the draft. They've got Arkansas as the 9th best signing class in the country. And I think they were 14th before the draft. So it's not like, the very best class, but I've seen times where Arkansas had, the quote-unquote very best class, and most of the players didn't pan out. And I like to say this all the time. Well, they had a class in 2015 that was ranked like the 46th best class out of high school. It had Kevin Kopps and Blaine Knight and Isaiah Campbell and Grant Cook. Yeah. And, you go on down the line of a lot of guys who were really good and helped, Arkansas to some really great seasons.
And I'm just sitting here thinking I would rather have the 9th best high school signing class with a lot of guys you get on campus than you sign the number 1 class and then you lose them all. It's like by the end of that, what is your class?
Teams that got hammered.
Yeah, it seems to me I'm more intrigued that I just feel like you're going to get to see these freshmen that they actually recruited. I'm so used to like if I see that they were signed a really big name freshman that you aren't ever going to actually see them in college.
Talk about projectable at freshman, Judah Ota. That's a name that I think is worth really watching. Yeah. He's a big outfielder from Honolulu. Of course, they've had some success with the Hawaiian-born players. Boy, you look at him and you're like, he's only 18 years old. Imagine what that guy could be like in 2 years after going through strength and conditioning. And he's got a really sweet-looking swing from the left side. I think there's a lot of projectability there with him. We'll get out of here on this. Ethan mentioned this a second ago. They got a late portal pop yesterday from Johnny Gomez. He also goes by – I asked him – I talked to him on the phone. He's listed on Fairleigh Dickinson's website as Jonathan Gomez. His social media has Johnny Gomez. I said, what do you prefer? He said, either's fine. So we went with Johnny. He's a 6 foot, 210-pound infielder. He grew up in the Fort Lauderdale area, played for 2 years at Fairleigh Dickinson in New Jersey. 64 Analytics has him ranked the number 177 transfer in this year's portal cycle. He was committed to Stetson. Stetson's in Florida, about 3 hours from his home. He was looking to get back closer to home, and then Stetson had a head coaching change. Steve Trimper, who was their head coach, who came here this year and went 2-2 in Fayetteville, he retired after the season ended, kind of a little way after the season ended too. And so all of the players who were in Stetson's orbit, they got to go into the portal. Gomez went back into the portal, and as he kind of alluded to me, staying at home maybe not as important when you have an opportunity to go to a place like Arkansas. Player development is a big deal to him. He said that he's obviously seen that from the Razorbacks. So they get Johnny Gomez, an infielder. I don't know if this guy's a starter. I don't know if he's a depth piece. Maybe he ends up being both. We'll see. But you look at his numbers, and this is not in a very strong conference, mind you, but 376 this year from the right side, 10 home runs, 21 doubles. That was a school record. 51 RBI. He was their leadoff hitter. He drew 37 walks. And this is the part that I love, Ethan. He was hit by a pitch 21 times. I asked him about this, and he said that their head coach at Fairleigh Dickinson would get mad if you got out of the way of pitches. They actually would give helmet stickers for guys who would get plunked by pitches. And so that was kind of like a badge of honor for them there. And I asked him about competition. I said, you're coming into a team here at Arkansas that's got a lot of infielders. He said, I'm not afraid of competition. He said, you got to work to get better. Really liked what I heard from him yesterday. Seems like a guy that's going to come in and work hard, and those are the type of players that I think have really defined Arkansas' success through the years.
Yeah. I'm so curious now with 5-year eligibility, a guy like this too, because like he's a rising junior. Does that mean he's entering his 4th year? Or
He's entering his 3rd year. He's got 3 years left.
I'm about to say, what are we going to start calling these players?
This could be like this could be our legacy. We could come up with a term for a 5th-year player, and it could just catch on like wildfire. And
Grandpa needs to be the last year. We've got a rising grandpa.
I don't know. That's quite the leap from senior to grandpa.
Well, all I know is it's going to confuse me a lot moving forward with a lot of these sports, because just having to reorient in my brain what year these players kind of are. It's like what used to be a sophomore right now is a freshman, and that's on like
sort of. I guess it's however you look at it. I still see it freshman year 1, sophomore year 2, junior, senior. We got to come up with a term for year 5.
Yeah. Well, it's just weird because I view with like bringing it back to basketball, these guys who reclassified and coming in, I'm like, this is almost like your development year for your actual freshman year.
Yeah.
But I know it's going to be their sophomore year. It's just weird to me. We need terms. I need terms. I think the easiest way to do it is if they'll just list, honestly, give you a number. You're in year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. I think that's the easiest, actually.
Gomez played shortstop at Fairleigh Dickinson. He was actually a Brooks Wallace Award semifinalist for the best shortstop in the country. I think there's about 15 or 20 of those. But he played at the Cape Cod League this summer, and there he also played second base and third base. He said that he's got some experience playing all of those positions at various ages growing up, and he's comfortable at pretty much any position in the infield except for first base, which he hasn't played before. So there's this again, if it's just a depth piece, it's still a big piece, because this is somebody who can kind of plug in and, the next baseball season I see that you don't have injuries somewhere that affect you or something that affects you will be the first one I've seen. And so even if this is a guy that goes on the bench, this is still like there's still so much value in having strong pieces on the bench. I think Arkansas has done a good job this year of going out and getting a lot of position players to where they're not – I don't think there's going to be the talent discrepancy between Arkansas's position players next year that there was between Arkansas and some of the teams they played this year. There's going to be a lot of depth on their bench, it feels like.
And I think in the SEC particularly, you're as good as your depth is a lot of the time, as far as like – because every team's one injury away from you got to turn to somebody else. And if this is like – this is a guy who is a really good depth piece. It seems like if he isn't a starter.
We'll see how he translates to SEC play. That's always the big question when you got a guy that comes from a conference like this. I mean, this is a low major conference. Yeah. This isn't even a mid-major conference. I think I read the other day or yesterday that the Northeast Conference, the conference that he came from, was the lowest rated conference in terms of strength of teams in the country last year, like even below the SWAC and the MEAC, where typically the teams that get out of there, they get hammered in the NCAA tournament. But we'll see. We'll see. You bat 376. I don't care where that is. I feel like there's something there that tells me that it can transfer to an extent. Mm-hmm. To an extent.
And then especially, the ranking that he got from 64 Analytics, I think they use a lot of numbers that can kind of put things on scale. Yeah, numbers, it's not always like they take into account the conference you played in.
So Arkansas's got 42 players in the fold right now for fall ball. Dave Van Horn said earlier this week that's a good number. They want to have a lot of players that they can at least go through fall ball and scrimmage and things like that. So this gives them 42. Will they have another? We'll see. But for sure, the roster building portion of the offseason is just about over. It began on June 1st with the portal opening. Here we are on July 31st. School starts in 2.5 weeks. They've just about got that roster in place for the 2027 season. We appreciate you being here. We're going to have basketball coverage at our website, maybe some baseball stuff too. We'll see. over the weekend at wholehogsports.com. Anthony Christensen is down in the Bahamas, so we're going to have plenty of coverage from these exhibition games that the Razorbacks are going to play there in the Bahamas. Hope that we'll see you there or next time on our podcast. Have a great weekend, everybody.